breakfast, like donuts and coffee for breakfast, and then the days just kind of unfold into hot dogs and potato chips and corn dogs and cotton candy. It's just one of those celebratory American holidays, and yeah. But I thought it would be interesting to start by like actually projecting how you would feel at the end of a day of eating that. So you can just like feel that in your body. You kind of get an instant hit, right? Doesn't take much. It's like, okay, maybe not. And then think of like today, where we're going to really explore the health evolution, right? And what it actually feels like to eat foods that are very vibrantly alive. And as far as I've been able to determine are really like the best foods for us. And then just project forward to the end of today, where we're going to eat these foods and do some yoga and meditation. And can you kind of feel how there's like a expansion in your body, like there's a lightness. So what that is, that's actually a mechanism of intelligence that we have. It's just like built into being a human being. We have this innate intelligence to know whether something's good for us or bad for us. And some of that comes from your experience, that you've had days where you've probably had coffee and donuts and hot dogs and cotton candy and corn dogs and those sorts of things. Maybe it was when you were 5 years old and never again since, or maybe it was actually more recently in your past or whatnot, that you ate foods that really your body didn't want. Some part of your mind wanted, maybe it was convenient, maybe it's just what everybody else was doing. And then you've had days where you've made really conscious choices, or you've just been around other people who've made more conscious choices, and you were just eating foods that were vibrantly healthy for you, and at the end of the day you felt a certain way. So there's that experiential knowledge of what we all hold, and that never goes away, and it deepens. A lot of what we're going to be playing with today is actually deepening that knowledge, that innate wisdom that we have, so that we don't need to like pick up a magazine and say like, is this good for me or is this bad for me? But we start to very much deepen how we are able to not only take in nutrients, like the foods that we're eating, but actually take in the intelligence of the plant. Tanya, I wish you had a hot dog for my demonstration, because I could show like the dandelion leaf and the hot dog, and I could just say like visually what things, like what feels like better in your body. But some of this knowledge is in this innate wisdom. Has been somewhat trained out of us from an early age, where we're taught to learn from teachers and to learn from books and to take tests to learn things, right? And so in a way, we're going to unschool ourselves and say like, actually, you hold the authority. I don't hold the authority here. You and your body's intelligence holds the authority of what's good for you and what's not good for you. And if we can hone that skill, as an entire culture, we'll start to become smarter human beings. So that's one of the basic teachings for today. And where that is in yogic philosophy, it's a basic understanding of the different layers of the mind. And there's a higher mind and a lower mind. And the lower mind is part of like what's trained in school. It's what can learn information. So you know how like information is really different than wisdom? Someone can be book smart, but then they can't really apply it in the world. They don't really know what they want to do with their lives. They don't really maybe relate well to other people, etc. There's that sense of holding intelligence that's not necessarily applicable. What we want to do is develop applicable wisdom, and that function of the mind is the higher mind. We call that buddhi in yogic philosophy. The lower mind is called manas, and it's basically a data collection center. So I will try to like fill up your data collection center a little tiny bit, but not too much, because what I actually want to do is start to point more and more awareness to buddhi, to that higher awareness of yourself. Yeah. Who feels like they know exactly what to do to feel great? Like more or less. Like I'm not saying like perfectly and there's no room to learn more, but you kind of know exactly what to do to feel great. And do you also know exactly what to do to feel like absolute crap, right? Like to like go into what I call the pain cave, right? You're now entering the pain cave, and it takes a little while sometimes to catch up with you, but then you can go deeper and deeper. deeper into the pancake. So in a way, we already know so much. What we're going to do is take that into the next level. So what I thought we would do is start by tasting some different leaves. But before we do, I wanted to talk a little bit about this plate of food here. And I'm just kind of curious too, like, who thought this was breakfast growing up? Not so much, right? Like there's definitely a gap in there.
I never even saw a plate of greens like that growing up. Never.
Yeah, right? It just wasn't there. There's like the box of cereal and the box of milk, and sometimes the cereal was like fluorescent colors, and then it would turn the milk fluorescent colors. Yeah, it's really interesting, like this gap from knowing what makes your body feel good. Was anyone taught growing up to take in some food and to feel it? Just to feel it. Like, is this good for me? Well, what does it feel like in your body? You know? And what is it communicating? Because if it's alive, these were picked this morning in my yard, if it's alive, right? So there's an intelligence to everything that's alive. It's all part of the evolutionary process. This is a multi-celled organism right here. This is not random, that this can survive on planet Earth, the only planet that we know that has life force, that has life, has complex life form. So this is alive. It's not nearly, as complex as the human brain or as the human being, but it is intelligent. And so when we take this in, there's an intelligence that's communicated into our body. I wish we had the hot dog, Tanya. We really
I want a sausage. You want a sausage?
I want a sausage. And a paper towel, because I don't really want to touch it. Right? So there's an intelligence of the evolutionary process within this leaf. The closer it is to being harvested, the more easily that transmission of information can come. Right? Are you guys like now salivating over the leaves, like just watching me eat it? Oh, it looks so good. Maybe not. So let's talk about leaves. I think this is the biggest leaf I found in my yard today. This is a turnip green. They're like overtaking the world in my yard. It's just one green from a turnip plant that it wants to conquer the world. So let's just talk about greens, and you can even just pass this around and just look at it and pass a few greens around. Just like get a sense of what greens are. So what does the green part of a plant do for the plant? I know we've got you're a biologist and you're a nutritionist, so you guys are gonna help me out a lot today, not even just a little. What does the leaf do for the plant?
Takes in sunlight, absorbs water,
nutrients, water, sunlight. Yep. And it takes in, like one of those nutrients that it takes in is carbon dioxide, right? Mm-hmm. And what does the tree leaf give off? Oxygen. Take a deep breath in. It's good stuff, right? So they say there was more oxygen on the planet when Jesus walked the earth. Like 2,000 years ago, there's much more oxygen on the planet because we've lost so much of our plant life to deforestation. And so knowing that we live in an oxygen-depleted environment compared to humans of the past, to me is really fascinating. It also makes me worship leafy greens, just knowing that they take in our carbon dioxide and they give off oxygen. Now, when you take that deep breath in, just feel what happens, that you take breath in. Where does the breath go after it goes into your lungs?
Our cells.
Into the blood, right? And then it starts to circulate in your blood. Has anyone ever had one of those days where you drank too much coffee and worked on the computer too long, or been in the car too long, and you feel like or been in the airplane too long, and you feel like your whole body is oxygen depleted, like you're in oxygen depleted state. So you know what that state feels like. Now imagine you've been for a brisk walk in the morning air in the mountains here, high altitude, very, very fresh prana environment. What does that feeling feel like in your body?
Alive. Energized.
Alive, energized. So in contrast, one feels more dead and one feels more alive. So we have a very direct, tangible experience of what oxygen does for the body. And also what like a high carbon experience feels like in our body too, that we have that very simple contrast. So the leafy green, once it goes into your digestive tract, where does it go next? What happens when food goes into your digestive tract? Where does it go next? Into your blood. It gets absorbed in the, I mean, you could probably describe that with me. You guys, I'm so not a physiologist or a biologist or a chemist. So you have to bear with me on those. And if anyone knows more of anything on those topics, just pipe up. I know my weaknesses, at least some of them. We eat food, it gets picked up right by our blood. It goes through our digestive tract and starts to move into our blood. So the plant, what's so interesting about these green molecules, what makes it green, the green plants? Chlorophyll. So the chlorophyll molecule and the red blood cell, otherwise known as the hemoglobin molecule, are the two most similar, they have the most molecular similarity, really, of anything inside and outside the human body. Does that make sense?
Say that again.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of, I don't know how to say it better, but if you take a cell that's inside the human body and you take a cell that's outside the human body, the chlorophyll molecule and the hemoglobin molecule are the most similar. They only have like one little electron difference. Like one has magnesium and the other has iron. Iron makes blood red, magnesium makes chlorophyll green. So what's happening, right, is the nutrients, all the nutrients from the sun, the nutrients of the air, the nutrients of the water, and the life force are moving very, very easily from the leafy green into your blood. So you get a direct infusion of life force, of basically the elements of our ecosystem, including in Ayurvedic medicine we call them the more, just the more conceptual elements of the fire of the sun, the air, the water, and the earth, the nutrients of the earth, which these leafy greens pull the roots of the plants pull the nutrients out. Like when you plant a seed, it doesn't look anything like this. Seeds are teeny, teeny, tiny. And what do? They get huge. How do they get huge? By pulling in the water, the sunlight, the nutrients from the earth. So all of that is combined into the leaf, which has the most direct transmission into the human red blood cell. So now we have like two of the most basic ways of making our blood happy. Now if our blood's happy, what's the blood's job? Carry the oxygen everywhere else, and what else is it carrying?
Filter toxins.
Yeah, the nutrients, and it's removing waste. It's moving carbon dioxide and it's moving waste back into the digestive tract so you can poop it out. So it's super simple, right? The blood's got this two-way informational job. It's supposed to bring the good stuff in and take out the stuff that's already been used. Or if you've been doing some bad stuff, it's going to take some of the bad stuff out too, or experiencing stress. So it's kind of simple, right? Does it seem really simple, like you should have learned this when you were 8? Somewhere around there? Yeah, good. That's why I want to keep everything at about 8-year-old level today. It's sort of how I live. What we're going to do now that we get why, does everyone get why green? As opposed to like why you don't see like carrot, well there are carrots here, but they're mostly the green part of the carrot. But why we're not talking about roots. So why aren't we talking about roots? Just a quick review for everybody. Different molecule structure, right, than the chlorophyll. So it's because of the chlorophyll and the hemoglobin. That's why we're talking about greens as opposed to other parts of the plant, which have different nutrients that are great building blocks for other tissue. Some animals eat exclusively greens, like giraffes. Like what? Cows.
Too, yeah.
And they say actually cows that like the whole milk controversy is really interesting because they're finding that, you know, like the cows that have access to great grass, their milk is pretty, like if you're not lactose intolerant, you're getting the chlorophyll hit through the milk, right? Makes so much sense. That's also why for nursing mothers in living foods wisdom, we say like have a lot of greens because it's going to help you build really energized, healthy milk, and it also increases your milk production. Okay, so now what we're going to do is talk about the different greens. Because what I found, I mean, a lot of you guys have been taking classes with me for, it's like years, right? We go way back, you know? And so one of the things that I find is happening is that people are getting stuck in routines, like they have kale every day. Or they always have like either kale or romaine or chard. Like, and so what I want to talk a lot about today is what I call species diversification. And I've been talking about this, I think it's fun, because now I can, on my blog, I can track how long I've been talking about, like when I thought of something, because I'll just write about it. I write about things before I really, really know it. I'm just like, this is amazing. Everyone should know this, and then if there's enough grab, it goes deeper. So I think I've been talking about species diversification for about only like a year or so. When I started eating wild foods, it was maybe about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And then I feel like the plants are making me more intelligent, they're communicating through me. So what I feel like the plant, I know, right? And like, oh wow, she is up there, we're having this for breakfast, and now she's saying that these talk to her. And they do. Yeah, I feel like, you guys, this is a little secret, this is so funny. I feel like the plants, are you ready, Mike? I feel like the local plants here are talking to me to communicate to the plants around the world. That's really what I feel like. And I'm not the only one who's having this feeling. I discovered this when I talked to Katrina Blair, who's like my favorite renegade thinker. And she has the same feeling. She wrote a book for the plants to talk to each other through humans better. She wrote this book, I think it's coming out this year. It's the 13 human survival weeds. It's called something like that. And it's how the 13 weeds that are growing around, she's found them on every continent, they're growing around the world, are the best for what humans are depleted in right now around the world. All of our degenerative diseases that are caused by, in a lot of ways, nutrient deficiency. Right? We have a high calorie, low nutrient diet right now on the planet. It's causing malnutrition. It's so bizarre. And so these plants are really, really high in nutrients and very low in calories, and they grow where land is disturbed. So they grow where the natural ecosystem can't grow anymore because the soil's disturbed. And what do? They're so cool. Here's one of them. Here's my prickly friend. Thistle. I should have brought, you guys, I have these new pictures from my website where I'm holding a thistle plant. It's this big. This thistle gets really, really huge. And thistle, it's pretty, like a lot of people don't like this plant, right? Like around here we spray it, we put petrochemicals on it. And it's crazy high in nutrients. And we'll go through like the various different nutrients and the various different plants. I'm not really interested in that, just personally. I just know it's good for me. So I don't really care how much magnesium and iron and calcium. And you probably know this stuff though. So maybe not for the wild plants, but you can help fill me in a little bit on that. Because I think it's good knowledge. I just don't have it. So the thistle is a permaculture plant. Does anyone know permaculture? Have you heard this word? So permaculture is where we understand that the plants are living in community. So it's very different than, I know, right? Isn't that cool? And they're smart. They communicate. They talk to each other, and they learn how to basically utilize resources and optimize space together. It's very, like the opposite of permaculture is monoculture or monocropping. Around here, if you look into a farmer's field, you see one crop, right? And it's, around here we've got barley, we've got potatoes, we've got, what else do we have? Alfalfa. Alfalfa roots, I just learned, can grow up to 30 feet deep. It's really interesting. Some of these plants are genetically modified, right? And then they require more petrochemicals to thrive. So we're, in a way, detoxifying the soil. Okay, so that's monoculture. Monoculture's on this side of the spectrum. Permaculture's on the absolute other side of the spectrum. Like they really couldn't be further apart. It's like my sausage and my thistle. I mean, really, isn't that so funny? You guys are never going to look at a sausage. Right, but they couldn't really be on different sides of the spectrum in terms of talking about available nutrients and really available building blocks of protein. Most Americans and most Westerners associate this with protein instead of this with protein. But protein is basically a whole bunch of amino acids put together in usable form for the human body. So the human body takes in this kind of protein, it has to break it down to make it usable. This, direct infusion into the hemoglobin molecule. Right? You get that direct, like, oh, I've got energy, and I'm smarter. This, you'll eventually get energy, but there's not the intelligence of the life force in here right now. Okay. So where was I? I was talking about permaculture. So this thistle is going to grow in disturbed soil. That means where we've had the bulldozers in and created the subdivisions or poured the concrete, the plant that's going to come up through the cracks in the concrete is going to be a permaculture plant. What's its job? It is pulling nutrients from beneath the disturbed soil, pulling it up through the leaves. In these, I mean, like I said, right? Huge! And then they flower and they spread their seeds everywhere, and then huge, like prickly forest that you walk through and they hurt, so humans don't like this. It feel nice on my skin. And what is it doing? It's growing all this foliage. What happens in the fall to the foliage? It decays. And then it lies on top of the earth. And then it happens again the next year, and the next year, and the next year. And where are these nutrients now? On the soil, or in the topsoil. They become the topsoil. So they take the nutrients from deep down and they pull them up to the surface. When they do, they naturally start to move out of the ecosystem because the soil's replenished and other more native-oriented plants will then grow there. So simple, right? Does everyone feel like, why haven't I heard of this? Like, why haven't I, like, wow, really? And I can eat it too? Like, just like that, even though it's kind of, me and Thistle have totally got along. I never would have, like, they're so prickly, right? But now I can eat them. Isn't that one? And same thing with nettle doesn't bother me anymore. We've become really good. Like I said, we're friends. You know, like these guys, we talk. And so, like with nettle, I used to get rashes when I'd harvest it. You know? And I could just eat it with the, isn't that really a trip? I mean, I would have been like, oh, whatever, Kate Stillman. You are out there. And I am, but, you know. It's just my experience that I'm sharing. So what I also want to talk about is how, and we have a bunch of things here. We have some native species, which are non-invasive. This is considered an invasive weed, and this is the native species. And I mean, doesn't that seem like prejudice? Because they're both really, really good for you, right? And so one we spray, and the other we're trying to protect. So this is the bad guy. And this is the good guy. What I want us to do, again, I'm trying to stick with this like 8-year-old level of perception, is to really say like, well, maybe we don't know enough yet. Maybe we don't really understand what nature's trying to communicate to us in 2012 when we're looking at, you know, larger carrying capacity of the planet than ever before in terms of population. Right? We're looking at, you know, all sorts of resource depletion in every way. I don't even have to remind you guys, you know what's going on, right? And then we think of like the whole petrochemical monoculture, monocropping plant industry. And what we're seeing is that over time, we have fewer and fewer seeds, that now they're seed banks because there's people that are trying to protect the intelligence that are in these different species so that we don't just end up with, like we have right now, you go to the grocery store, how many different plants are in the produce aisle of the grocery store? I mean, let's talk Whole Foods, just so we just kind of can go into our like little dream world instead of like rolls.
30, yeah.
20, 30, maybe more, maybe 100. I'm going to give them 100. I mean, just on the outside, fruits and vegetables. Maybe a little bit more.
The herbs. With the herbs.
With the herbs.
Okay.
Like grapefruits and the orange. Oh no, if we just talk about greens though, we could have beet greens, carrot greens, turnip greens, spinach, dandelion greens, 4 different kinds of kale, fennel greens, radicchio, a bunch of different lettuces, a bunch of Asian greens like the bok choy, sometimes the pak choy, mizuna, yeah, and some sprouts which will represent like alfalfa and clover. So it's respectable. Whole Foods is respectable. If you think of like now the conventional grocery store, there's fewer. Oh, we forgot collard, Swiss chard. There's usually those two. Now, does the Swiss chard, does it change varieties? Is it just the same Swiss chard year round? Like that one strain of Swiss chard. There's usually 2. Now there's rainbow chard and the regular Swiss chard. So we can see it's like we've selected, even in like the best of situations right now, we've selected a few species. So out of the millions of species, right? We see the same 100 or so species. Now most of those species in the regular grocery store are monocropped. The organic species are monocrop, mostly now in like Mexico or in California for where our food sources come from. So monocrop plants, the soil itself isn't as diverse, right? There's not as many diverse nutrients to come in. So if we look at, like they even say, like before and after the Green Revolution, like spinach used to have, do you know the stat on that? I would think it was something like 30% more nutrients, like calcium in it than it does today. It's at least that, I think. So we can see that like the stuff from I don't have anything from the store here, but if we were to have something for the store, kale from the store versus kale from the garden, that kale, it's not the same in terms of nutrient value. My argument too is it's not grown in an interesting ecosystem. It's also not carrying the intelligence, right? It's carrying the intelligence of just, it's like this whole neighborhood is just all kale. They put additives in the soil to get more nutrients. It's just not as intelligent of an ecosystem. Okay. So these are just some things. What I'm trying to do at this point in the day is just like open us up to some different ways of thinking for the rest of the day. What I want us to do too is we're going to taste these plants and you can just, will you grab on like 2 little plates and we can just pass around a few little plates of the different leafy greens. This is something you can do in your yard and in the woods. One thing I do, and I probably get in trouble for saying this, so I need a disclaimer. Disclaimer. Don't hold me legally accountable for what you do with your own body. Actually, bigger ones? Big, yeah. I meant like this big. Sorry, that was not very good communication. I learned this from Katrina Blair, who she has a wild food and local food restaurant. She started in Durango. She started a no spray program in Durango. She, like I said, she makes me look mainstream.
Conservative.
Nice? Isn't that great? She makes me look totally conservative, mainstream. But what she did when she was in her early 20s is she just put on a backpack with a few like survival grains in it and went out in the woods and decided to learn from the plants. She says she just eats all the different plants. She like, even if they're slightly poisonous, if you just have a little bit of it, you know, chances are it won't kill you. Disclaimer. But I do the same thing. And so I just wanted to share that. Just that's like what I do is I taste the plants, and I often won't swallow a plant I don't know. Actually, I almost never will swallow a plant I don't know. But I'll taste it, and I'll just. In Ayurveda, there's a very basic doctrine, and that you know every plant has healing property. There's no plant that's not medicinal.
Because otherwise it could grow. It would exist.
It's like everything's good for something. You know, like the worst awful thing that ever happened to you learned a lot from. It's kind of like that. It's like the plants that are totally toxic to the human body will also detox the human body. In fact, like a lot of the, what I've noticed is a lot of like, I'm always looking for more bitter greens, because they have that, which are basically that spectrum of where does a food become a medicine, and a lot of these are considered medicinal, like the thistle. If I had nettle, I know what I'm sorry about the nettle, guys. I can't remember. The dock, like they're considered more of like herbs and foods. Is that they're going to detoxify my body more because they've got more intense taste. I'm going to include some of where'd they go? There's these, and you guys can just take like a little. Here, start eating.
So what are these?
Yeah, so I'll show you what they all the different ones are. Some of these, like this one, that's really long. This is a wild sorrel I got up in Mill Creek yesterday when I was mountain biking, and it's got well, you can taste it and you can tell me what it tastes like. This is Lacinto kale, or no, dinosaur. What kind of kale is this?
Yeah.
The tall, skinny Lacinto?
Yeah.
Lacinto kale. There's a few different kales. I have like a purple kale in my garden and a few different kales. This is just a beet green. So some of these, all the greens that grow on root vegetables are edible. So I'll harvest greens from my beets and turnips and carrots all summer, and then in the fall I pick the root. Right, so that there's just always a ton of greens. The thistle is the prickly one. Dandelion has the jagged leaf.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Carrot. Did everyone get carrot greens?
You're good.
I wonder if
Carrot
there's
greens
different
good.
levels of protein.
So you want to eat
Which
that?
is this would be?
That's a turnip.
Oh, that's a turnip green.
Oh yeah. So can you taste how they're all really different?
Is there different levels of protein? I mean, there's
Protein, yeah, of like amino acids and protein. There are different levels of protein. There's different levels
so
of
how
iron,
about like the
calcium.
beet greens? Would that be
Which ones
less?
have the most?
That's on that.
Nutritiondata.com. Go to nutritiondata.com and you can get all the stats. Some of these aren't in it, like fireweed. These got the fireweed.
Is that what this is?
That's that. Here's some more fireweed. I want you guys to all try the fireweed. Yep.
So Kate, I have a question.
Can I have one of those? I just want to see what I'm. Yeah.
When you're
Yeah.
planting your garden, they say not to plant like so monocropping.
Right.
Not to say plant carrots in the same place next year or
Right.
peas where you did the year before.
Right.
Is that because you lose those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you're losing some that have bark. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
I didn't know if it was because of I didn't know what the reason was for
Mm.
that. Like, were they not as
Yeah. Like some are
Productive.
nitrogen fixers and some take out nitrogen and put it. And same thing with all the different nutrients in the soil. Yeah. You'll deplete your soil of certain nutrients that then show up in the leaves of the plant. So what does the fireweed taste like?
It's a little citrusy.
Citrusy. And is it hot or cold?
Hot.
It's hot, right? Does everyone get that? Like you're like.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't know if it's a pit
Don't
in me
like
or
it.
what.
Yeah, does anyone not like? Yeah, right.
I like
or, and some people like it, so that's good. Because you don't like something doesn't necessarily mean it's not good for you. It might just be less familiar to you. But it also might not be good for you too. Like in the sense of, if you were to make a lot of it, it might start to detox your system really fast, which might make you really sick. But it's also good. I always try to eat the plants that I don't like more and more, so that I can get to know them instead of being prejudiced. So I don't want to be prejudiced against things like thistle or fireweed or whatnot. I actually want to know the intelligence of the plant. Fireweed flowers, gorgeous, right? Like you see a field of fireweed, and it's like they're called fireweed because the flowers are this bright fuchsia, and so like the field will look, and because the seed is released from heat from fire, and they're incredibly gorgeous. So you can put those on your salads or whatnot, and a lot of the we'll look at edible flowers today. So is a leafy green a vegetable? Curious. I know, I just learned this. This is like fresh in my brain. It's really questionable. Like it's not, it's more similar in sort of structure to the plant to, I guess, flower petals than it is to the root. So as far as like looking at why can we combine in fruit smoothies, why can we combine fruits with leafy green vegetables, is because it's not really, it doesn't have a very similar cellular structure to like the root of the plant. It doesn't act like a starch like the root of the plant does. And it doesn't act even like broccoli is considered a vegetable, and that often doesn't combine well in smoothies with fruits either. Like often, and I'm not talking about in a chem lab, I'm just talking about in your day, like an 8-year-old theory here. Like, how does it feel in your belly? That's how you know. That's the best way to know how foods combine for you. How does that feel? Do you get gas? Do you get bloated? It's really very, very simple. So leafy greens and fruits tend to combine really well.
So one question.
Oh wait, let me say one more thing. This is really interesting. In Asia, they're called two different things. Like if you're eating, here when we say vegetables, there's no differentiation between whether you're talking about a leafy green or a carrot. Or a pea, which is a legume, right? So it's really interesting, right? When you start to think of like, well, why do we group all these leafy greens and roots and squashes into the same category? It really doesn't make any sense biologically or biochemically. And it also doesn't really make that much sense rationally when you think of like, right, the leaf of the plant has a very different function than the root of the plant.
Or the fruit.
Or the fruit, yeah. Yeah, or even of the flower, right? The flower of the plant, what's the function I mean, flower has a lot of biological functions. As far as eating flowers, how does it feel when there's like, you're at a fancy restaurant and there's a few flowers on your salad? What does that do to your spirit?
Happy.
Yeah, it's just like, isn't it? It's like, it's so special. Like there's that, and you like almost will pause and appreciate before you just like, you know, a hot dog. Like there's not much appreciation here, right? But isn't this helpful?
Yes.
So funny. Okay, so different function. Go ahead, question.
Yeah, so like raw vegetables.
Yeah.
And bloating and gas. How come you have that from raw and then not from cooked? Like there's certain, I just can't eat
Certain things raw.
vegetables raw.
In general, there's, you know, if we grew up eating this, then we can digest it. A lot of it is because we don't have the digestive enzymes to digest the living foods. Now, living foods are packed full of digestive enzymes. So it's like one of those, it's like until you have enough living foods in your body and until you're detoxed enough, it's harder to eat them. And a lot of people have been on living foods for quite a while. They say that like they can combine almost any living food with any other living food and they don't have any digestive issues. But they're also much more attuned to what makes their body feel really good. So that's another like two-way street. If you're starting out, like I was talking to someone yesterday on the phone who, a new client, who's, you know, she's eating animal protein 3 times a day and grain 3 times a day. And so for her to transition, I mean, if she went on 100% living wild food diet tomorrow, can you imagine how send her body detox like that? I mean, it would just, like everything would freak out. There's nothing familiar. So in part it's that. Also, and we'll talk about this a little later this afternoon when we look into the different body types and how to optimize living foods for your body type. People that have weaker digestive fire, what in Ayurveda we call Vishama Agni, meaning the fire, the Agni, it sometimes is there and sometimes it goes on vacation for a while. Like it's in and it's out and it's not very dependable. Like a person like that, sometimes they can eat a little bit of something like raw cabbage salad that's been marinating for a few hours. Other days, they'll eat it and they'll feel gassy and bloated and have insomnia and, you know, and just this whole, right? So a lot of it is dependent on the state of Agni and understanding our own Agni. And that's really most of it. But, you know, between the Agni and the enzymes are part of the digestive Agni in Ayurveda. They're part of what we call Jatara Agni. And that's the digestive fire that's mostly in the small intestine. And so as you eat more living foods, particularly the leafy greens, that you replenish that. Like one of the things that I just learned was that, has anyone heard of prebiotics? I know you've all heard of probiotics. So prebiotics, what's a prebiotic do? Poor Melissa, she's like, I'm going on vacation, and he keeps asking me these questions.
Yeah, and probiotic, right? Prebiotic is your digestion has specific enzymes that help to break down and absorb nutrients.
Yes.
And there are certain foods that will help increase that digestibility and absorption of nutrients.
Yeah.
Nutrition,
precursors to having good digestive flora, like good intestinal flora. It's like the precursors that build up good digestive flora, and so that you won't need as much sort of probiotic because there's like the building up. So dandelion greens, and we're going to keep hearing more and more about dandelion greens. I've just printed out the t-shirts. I think they'll be here this week. My dandelions are the new kale t-shirts because they're a permaculture plant found worldwide. They're also the plant that's so far and high, and I'm sure it's not going to be like at the end of the day the one that's still the highest. But as far as we know right now, it's the highest plant in prebiotics when taken raw. Isn't that so curious? It's like trying to save us. These weeds.
That's why they're everywhere.
That's why they're everywhere. See, now they're starting to talk to you. You're going to see them everywhere. They're going to start talking to you.
Eat me.
They're in Central Park, all over Central Park.
Central Park. Yeah. Great. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make some smoothies. Why don't we do this? Why don't we group together some, let's put the kale from my garden. We're going to take some of the, what I want to do is have us taste the difference between a wild green smoothie and a domesticated green smoothie. And the domesticated is still from my garden. So we'll do just monocrop kale in one, and the other, let's do a mix of dandelion and thistle. And in the other one, we'll use the celery to break the taste, but we'll do sorrel, fireweed, and celery. And this is what I often will do, is if the taste is really strong, both the sorrel, did anyone taste the lemoniness of the sorrel? And what did it make your mouth feel like after you had it? Does anyone need some sorrel?
Yeah.
Here, you guys can share that. And sorrel and dock have the same properties.
Do you have a dock?
Well, sorrel and dock are kind of in that same category. Does it make your mouth feel more wet or more dry after you have it?
Dry.
Dry. So it's astringent. And the fireweed, so good. And then the fireweed, I know, you can see, Marjorie's been like refining her taste with me for like years now, and it's interesting now, it's like you can really feel it, right? You can feel the dynamic nutrients in the plants.
Can I have some fireweed?
Yeah. There's fireweed. Okay, so we're gonna do one that's gonna have a lot of intense taste, and that's gonna be our detox plan. That's gonna just kind of shake everything up, and then we're gonna do the domesticated, and we'll do with the kale. Let's do like the typical American one with like kale and banana. Yeah, and then with the wild one, let's do apple and lemon. Okay, so we'll let Tanya work her magic.
Well, a lot of when I do the cleanses with you, or go through your cleanse recipes, some of the juices I'll have a hard time with.
Yes.
And I'll add an apple.
Yes.
Or something else, a carrot, and then I can, then it's not.
That's fine.
Especially the green.
Especially the green.
Yeah, the green juice.
Oh, the green juice is
And then
with kale or
with kale.
Yeah.
If I do it with the lettuces, it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah. So that's
I'm trying to think. There's a couple other ones that I really have a hard time.